have any questions and answer them after the program. So without further ado, Kathy and Keith, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, Jackie. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Great to see you. We've got a great turnout, so this is awesome. You all know me because this is our section, so I'll let Keith give a little bit of background on himself. He and I will both be delivering this to a couple of different sections, so you're our first guinea pigs, but it's a really important topic, and obviously this is our hiring season, so it becomes even more important. Can you still see my screen? I'm seeing things moving around here. I think you can. So anyway, Keith, why don't you go ahead and give them a little bit of background, and then we'll get started.
Your PowerPoint went away there,
That's
Kathy.
what I thought. That's really weird. How did that happen?
I think you can just
somebody broke in and tried presenting their screen. It's okay.
Okay, let me try again here.
We'll get it figured out. Yes, thank you all for having me. Excited to be back working with Kathy for the South Florida on some education here. As Jackie said, I am in the North Florida section as the career consultant. I've been with the career services team now for a little over 7 years. Just new to North Florida here as of last July, though. And prior to that was up in the Ohio's, covering both the Ohio sections and Kentucky, as well as I've covered Indiana, Tri-State, and Western New York at one time or another throughout my time with the team. Prior to this, I was a sales rep for Adams and TaylorMade Golf in the Ohio area. And then prior to that, I was the head professional at Dayton Country Club. So my career started, as many of you probably, back when I was about 15 at some public courses up in Northwest Ohio, and worked my way through, was at with the TPC organization for a time down in Sarasota at Prestantia for a couple of years before going back to Ohio. But looking forward to talking about this. This is something that's obviously ultra important, but also very near and dear to me, as I've used some of these strategies to success in my past dealings within the industry. So looking forward to hopefully helping you all out and seeing if we can get you some more money in your pockets.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thanks, Keith. So I want to start out with just giving you a little bit of overview of the landscape of employment right now. So one of the things that I've done in the past several months is I've joined the Society for Human Resource Managers, and they've got some tremendous resources in their organization. So I pulled some data from them and joined some of their webinars and listened to, other industries and how they are navigating the employment landscape, because we're all still critically low in finding talent. So if you took a survey of the HR professionals around the country, 87% of them reported that there are few to no qualified applicants for the positions that they need to fill. So, most of these are managerial roles. So it's really important that we continue to mentor and train our staffs. And, we say that every single day. We were at the chapter meetings on the East Coast the last 2 days, and that was a resonating theme of participation and really, bringing your assistants along and making sure that they are being mentored and trained properly. 68% of employers across the country are planning salary increases. So I think we all see this in the news. Compensation in every industry has risen and continues to rise, probably slow just a tad, but hospitality and leisure are still trying to catch up with the rest of the industries across the country. So that puts you in a great position to go negotiate, whether that's for a promotion or a new job. And then the average U.S. pay increase is projected at about 4.6% this year. So keep that in mind when you're putting your plans together, when you're going in to talk to your employers, and when you're frankly accepting a new position. And then I want to let you know that 37% of U.S. workers ask employers for a compensation raise. And I can tell you, for women, that is much, much higher. It's very uncomfortable to go into your boss and say, hey, I'd like to sit down and really talk about what I accomplished this past year, how I contributed to the organization, and if there's room for an increase in my compensation. It's just not an easy thing to do. So we're hoping today we can give you some strategies that will alleviate some of that stress, and you'll feel a little more comfortable going in.
And I think, Kathy, real quick to add on to that, I think in our industry, this is something that we see actually at a higher, like a lower percentage of people that actually ask, right? Like you and I, when we go in and work with facilities, all of a sudden we're seeing, being able to increase comp anywhere from, 10, 15, 20, 25% at times. And a lot of times the professional leaving that position is like, oh my gosh, how did you guys get them to that? And it's like, well, we presented the data. Did you ever ask for an increase in compensation? And most of the time they've said no. So it's a lot of times we just have to ask the question, obviously be armed with the data, and we're going to provide, some resources and different information throughout the presentation, but just asking the question and sitting down and having the conversation is a big first step.
Yeah, one of the things Keith and I didn't put on this presentation, and I actually conveyed it to the chapters yesterday when we had our meetings, is when Career Services is involved and helping you with putting this plan together to go in and talk to your employer, or frankly, it's part of ExecuSearch too, now that we're involved with sitting in and, guiding facilities into hiring, especially the managerial level positions. We've been able to increase compensation $4.5 million last year, and that's significant. Sorry, I keep seeing things pop up here. So very significant. So there's really tremendous opportunity for you to go in and at least get some type of merit increase or cost of living increase at the very least. So let's go on to the next slide. We're going to start with negotiating a promotion, because I think that's probably where the majority of you are right now. The names that I see on the screen anyway, you're probably, at the end of the season, your budgeting season is going to start. So this is a great opportunity for you to go in and have this conversation with your employer. So the first thing you want to do, and, we talk about this for interviewing, right? You have to do your research. So you really need to find out, what position are you looking to advance into, or if you're just currently you're going to stay in your position, what have you done in this past year? So you want to look at, again, what's the average merit increase? What is the history of the club as far as giving promotions, giving merit increases? You want to keep that in mind. You want to know what the market value is for your position. So you have to reach out to us and get a comp report. You can also get comparative reports from Club Benchmarking if it's a private club, or Sagacity Golf if it's a public facility. You can look at the McGladrey, and you can look at the Beekman. So really take all of those into consideration and see where you are as far as what your position is compared to similar facilities. I will tell you, if you're looking at the McGladrey or you're looking at the Beekman, it's not necessarily apples to apples. And that's one of the benefits of being a PGA member and filling out your comp survey, so that we have the data and we can go and look at what are the similar clubs and what are the similar positions in your section, in your area. So really important that you reach out to your career consultant. In this case, it would be me, and then let me go to headquarters and pull a compensation report. So you'll notice I just said, let me go to headquarters and pull a compensation report, because we've had major restructuring in the compensation survey. And I'm going to bring this up since you are all on the call today. This information has never been more confidential than it is right now. I used to have access to it so I could create reports. I don't have access to it anymore. There's one person in Frisco that is managing this data. He's not a PGA member, so there's no chance of favoritism being played or whatever, stories get conjured up in our minds. And he manages the data. So if you need a compensation report, reach out to me. We'll talk about the specifics that I need to give to him, and then he will generate a report and send it to me and I will give that to you. But it does not include club names. It does not include colleagues' names. It is just, averages, top, similar to what we had before, top 10%, top 25%, whatever you're looking for, we can create that report. So if you haven't filled out your compensation survey, please go in and do it. It takes less than 3 minutes. It's confidential. And the other thing is it's going to be tied back to section funding. So we want to make sure the section receives all of the funding that you deserve. And, it's part of the metrics that they're looking at to figure out, what is that dividend that's going to be paid to our section. So really important that you guys understand that and that you fill that out if you haven't done so.
And to Kathy's point earlier, right? Like we're putting more money back into professionals' pockets. I mean, just this year alone, since the start of January, in negotiations only, and we're not even talking going in an executive search space or a job change space where we're working with a facility and providing compensation data. Just in negotiations alone, we're a little over $3 million back to our professionals in their pockets just since January of this year through negotiations. This is why this is such a key component for us and for you, because we're able to provide the greater detail we're able to provide, and the more information we're able to provide, the better foot and leg you have to stand on in a negotiation. As Kathy's going through and talking about research, though, while the compensation report is greatly important part of everything in a negotiation, I will say it's not the only key component, though. Personally, I went in when I was at Dayton Country Club one year and said, hey, I feel like I'm extremely underpaid. Here's the comp report to show why. And they kind of laughed at me and said, great, we don't really care. And I walked back out of the room kind of with my tail between my legs. And I went in the next year and I said, okay, what did I screw up, right? Like, I know I'm underpaid. They look at us as being a much higher end facility than what the pay scale is, providing out to. Where did I go wrong? Well, I didn't come in with data on what I had accomplished, what my operation had accomplished. And that's where you have to take stock as to what's going on within your operation, the successes that you've accomplished along with your team. Understand that if you've started a new junior program or a new player development program, understand that there is a value being driven back to the facility in dollars, a bottom line revenue from those things. Because those individuals, if it's a junior program and new kids are joining up that have never been a part of a junior program before at your club, guess what? Those parents are probably out there with that kid a lot more than they were previously. So kind of track member spend. Has it gone up for that member that joined this new program? If it has, guess what? You're the direct correlation as to why that's happened. So you're directly pushing dollars back to the club. Understand the value if you're adding additional outings or if play is increased in events because of some change that you made from your tournament management perspective. Understand that there is money and value being driven back to the facility, because if you can go in and say, look, here's what we've been able to increase. Here's the satisfaction increase. Here's all of these different things. And oh, by the way, we've driven an additional $500,000 back to the club in increased spend through the members through these programs. All of a sudden, if you're going in and asking for a $10,000 raise out of 500, guess what? It's probably a little bit easier of a yes at the end of the day. Is it absolutely easy? Is it going to happen? No, I'm not here to say that, but you have to kind of come armed with the receipts, so to speak. Like, hey, here's what we've accomplished on top of the comp data. And if the comp data is showing that you're low and you're showing that you're a high achiever and driving all this value to your club, boy, it's really tough for clubs to come back and say, I don't think that we're going to give an increase this year.
Yeah, so we talk about in our past educational seminars the importance of these source stories, right? If you've gone through a resume writing webinar with me, you know that I encourage all of you to keep a journal and write down all of these accomplishments. So when the year end comes and you're trying to figure out, what data am I going to present to my employer, you have it written down. I do this monthly. I track my own accomplishments, and you need to do the same. So it's a lot easier for you to go in armed, like he said, with data. And I also want it when you need to update your resume. All of those accomplishments need to go on your resume too. So, we have the top 6 things you need to do here. One of the things I wanted to say before we started is I'm not big on, all this text in slides, but I've been asked by several professionals that when this is over, if I could share that with them, and just sharing pictures doesn't really give them an accurate view of what we're trying to convey. So I have a lot of text in these slides, so I apologize for that. But if anybody would like to have the presentation afterwards, I'm happy to share it with you. So moving on, talking about the accomplishments. How have you impacted the bottom line? How have you reduced cost? What new programs or processes have you implemented that have been successful? And what new skills have you acquired that benefit the organization? So this is really key. Every single year, you should set a goal of what new skill do I need to either improve or do I need to go get? I just mentioned to you that I joined the Society for Human Resources. I'm working towards that certification. We have all of our certifications within the PGA. You can't remain stagnant. You just can't. You have to continue to learn and put new quivers in your bag, which we hear Michael Liamay say all the time. Keith has gone through a leadership class, and he's also gone through a project management certification. And he's, if I'm not mistaken, Keith, you're working on your master professional.
Getting ready to, yeah.
Yeah. So, whether it's within the PGA or outside of the PGA, those new skills are extremely important. Teaching and coaching, TrackMan, KVest, there's a new AI, I don't know what it's called. If you're a teacher and a coach, you can probably help me out here. I know a couple of you have mentioned it to me. There's some sort of AI new certification that you can get. So those are all really important. And again, show your value to your employer. I'm a big brand person, right? I worked for Callaway for 12 years, and we had this just constantly beat into our heads. And I know Keith did as well, coming from TaylorMade. Brand. You have to brand yourself. You have to have a consistent message. You have to convey your brand every single day. And I think, we talk about that when we attend seminars, when we attend the PGA show. We all like to kind of be relaxed, and sometimes we look a little too relaxed when we're, going around the PGA show in jeans and a t-shirt. That's your presentation of your brand. And is that really what your brand is? I think dressing nicely, being well-groomed, having a presence on LinkedIn, absolutely extremely important. Anytime we do an executive search, that's the first thing we do when we get your application is we go look at your LinkedIn profile. And so do employers. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in the boardroom and a committee has said to me, the resume doesn't match the LinkedIn profile. Where is the disconnect? So you have to be cognizant of your brand on social media, and especially LinkedIn, because that is the #1 go-to business network right now. So let's clean up those LinkedIn profiles. If you need help with that, reach out to Keith or myself. We can help you do that. And again, very important. Employers look at that every single day, and you want to have a really professional brand, and you want to continue that branding wherever you go. I would love to fly wherever we travel. Sometimes we have to go to Frisco. I'd love to just throw jeans and a t-shirt on and get on a plane. But I can't tell you how many times I run into somebody, whether it's in the Dallas airport or just at RSW or going through Atlanta. It happens every single time. So I've just had to train myself that, 2 hours of being uncomfortable in presentable clothing is worth my brand. So keep that in mind when you're traveling as well.
And don't underestimate what you're doing within your communities. If you're doing some stuff outside of normal scope of work, but you're still a representation of your community. You're a representation of your club. So if you're out doing community work or volunteering for different things, it's not like, don't look at it as being braggadocious that you bring it up or talk about that, especially if you are negotiating, like, hey, I'm providing this vision of what our club is to the community as a whole. And again, it's not necessarily what you're doing it for. It's just an addition to concept of, look, I'm out doing this because it's a passion of mine, but at the same time, there is accolades that come back to the club, that the golf professional is out there in the community, being part of the community, helping out in some form or fashion. Like, that makes the club look good. That potentially draws new members in. There is some ancillary benefits to that. Again, that's not necessarily what you're doing it for, and I don't think that any of us are, but don't be afraid to kind of bring that up too, especially in a negotiation. It goes back to the brand and who you are and who we are as professionals, as PGA professionals. So don't forget about that as you start looking through and understanding branding of yourself.
Yeah, really, really important. I know, Casey Rozek and I know he's on here. I saw his name on here. He travels a lot with his members, right? To me, he always looks like the ultimate professional. So that's, kudos to Casey. But that brings a benefit to the facility, right? To have somebody with that likability factor, with that professionalism. So keep that in mind. It is a benefit to the facility when you can kind of bring that recognition and represent them in a positive way. Also, highlight any awards or accolades you have achieved at work or in the industry. Governance, extremely important for the section and chapter. Get involved in your section and chapter. Those chairs that you hold, those committees that you serve on are important on your resume. It shows your leadership. It shows how you can connect the club to the section, and it's just important. So keep achieving those things as well. Sometimes on your resume, keep in mind that employers don't know what the Bill Strasbaugh Award is. So we may have to spell that out for them. We have some great awards, but again, employers unfortunately don't know what those are. So we have to be a little braggadocious on, what those achievements and accolades are. So keep that in mind. Your brand is a benefit to the facility. It brings the facility value. Oh, let's back up one. I don't know how to back up, but there was one point on there that I wanted to make, and that is when you go in to speak to your employer about a merit increase, don't demean your colleagues, right? Even if you do more work or, you think you're a better representation of the club, it does not do you any service to demean any one of your staff members or any one of your colleagues. Just don't even go there. I think that's really important. And then recommendations are great. Now, don't go get recommendations just because you're going in to ask for a promotion. This isn't going to be a campaign where you're going to call every member and say, it's that time of the year. I want to go in and ask for a promotion. Can you write me a recommendation? These are recommendations or thank you letters or, I know members send you emails just thanking you for your performance or how you handle the situation or how you treated their guest. Save those. Those are great to present to your employer to show him or her that the members value your presence at the club. Those go a long way, but don't go campaigning because it's that time of the year and try to get recommendations. But those are really important to present to your employer. I think knowing that you have the support of the membership goes a long way.
And the same thing too, if it's not in an email, but it's in verbal form, right? Like you're having a conversation with somebody and they're thanking you or being, very kind for whatever may have occurred. Don't be afraid to just write that down. Like Kathy said, kind of continuing that journal theme. Don't be afraid to write that down and bring those up as well. Even though it wasn't necessarily in a written form, it is still a communication. It's still something that you're gaining a recommendation or being shown for doing a good job at something. So again, all of those things kind of add up at the end of the day. And as we look at it, look, us as a profession, what I've noticed throughout my career is PGA professionals are some of the most humble individuals I've come across. We do have to take the humble hat off at times and understand we're not bragging. We're not like trying to say, oh, look at me and shine the light. It's just saying, no, look, I'm doing a good job. I'm bringing value to the club, and you deserve to be compensated for that, or you deserve to be recognized in that space. Again, it's not necessarily bragging because it's just things that you've done. You're just communicating the value that you've brought at the end of the day. It's not saying, hey, look at me. It's just saying, hey, this is what we've done. This is what we've accomplished. I feel like my staff deserve, some additional compensation because of this.
So let's talk about cash is king, but there's not always room in the budget for cash. We all recognize that, especially when clubs are trying to keep up with the Joneses and they're implementing these multi-million-dollar renovations and trying to, add performance centers to the driving range and expand their patio and dining facilities. So keep that in mind. I think it's important to really be in tune rather with what's going on at the club and where do you think there is room for negotiation. It may not be in your base salary, but it could be in other areas that we have listed here. So if you don't already have health insurance through the club, I'm hearing that clubs are willing to give a stipend towards insurance if you have to pay for it yourself. So keep that in mind. Opportunities to learn new skills or have increased responsibility. Anytime you take on, new responsibilities, hopefully in the future that garners a merit increase. If you are going to take on new responsibility, one of the things that I would ask your employer is to say, hey, I'm willing to take on this responsibility because I know we can't add additional staff, but if I perform and I exceed this expectation, can we please revisit this in 3 months and talk about how I, could potentially be rewarded for this? Anytime, I think we need to keep this in mind too. Try not to make it about you. Try to make it about them. Anytime the staff is rewarded, they're more motivated to exceed the club's expectations. Anytime they're not rewarded and they're just piled on, we all know that morale goes down, motivation goes down, and that's not good for the club. So you really need to position this as this is in the club's best interest and not just you. It's got to be about the club. We talk about this in interviewing and resume writing too. You have to tailor it and put yourself in their position in order to really make it seem like this is a benefit for them, which it is. But you have to think that way and you have to talk that way. 401k or student loan contribution. If you ask for a student loan contribution, you're probably going to have to give them something in return, some consideration, right? If you contribute for the next 2 years, I'm certainly willing to stay here. So you have to put a little verbal contract together, and those are enforceable. And we'll talk about that at the end of the presentation. But, it's a great way to build loyalty and trust with the employer. And obviously it helps you with some of your student loan debt. Deferred compensation in return for a commitment to the facility. I know some of our directors of golf in our section have this in place. The club banks a certain amount of money according to the number of years that you stay. And if you stay those number of years, then that is paid out to you. That's a great way, again, to build loyalty with your employer and to have some additional income that you don't actually get to spend and you get a big chunk at the end. So that is, I see that more often. Flex time off. I love this. This is a best practice that I stole from David Kent. So we were talking about paid time off and he had a good point. He's like, why is it paid time off? He goes, we're all adults. And this is a business where we work 70, 80 hours. We're trying to get some work-life balance. So why don't we call it flex time off? Because as adults, we all know when it's okay to take a day off and when it's not. We're not going to be taking a million days off in in season, but now is the time where you should have some flexibility. So maybe propose that to your employer, that move away from paid time off, and can we move to flex time off? So like if I need to leave at 12 o'clock and it's not busy in July, nobody's saying you got to clock in and clock out. So I really like that flex time off. I don't know if David's on or not. I didn't see his name. Professional development education. That's a win-win for both, right? I think you should definitely add that to the list of asks. Work-life balance. We try our best to achieve this. It's more achievable in the off season than it is during season. I know Tom Woldenhouse is on here. I saw him. He just did a great presentation on work-life balance, and he and I had a conversation over email afterwards. There's a great book called Off Balance on Purpose, and I know he's reading it right now, and I am as well. And it has some great points about we're never going to achieve balance in anything that we do because priorities are constantly changing, but we can strive to do better. Times have changed and we need to evolve. But again, it's never going to be an equal home life situation with work. It's not possible. But, again, that balance can change according to our seasons. Tom, any comments on that? He's going to be silent.
You're doing a great job, Kathy. I'm a work in progress, as you know, on this topic.
You're doing awesome, Tom. And then, talk about a health and wellness reimbursement. I've heard of some of the bigger clubs letting their employees come in and use the facility gym. That could be early in the morning, 5 to 6 or 6 to 7. And obviously then it's available to members afterwards, or maybe paying for a gym membership. I know the PGA of America gives us an allowance for health and wellness. They have some facilities out in Frisco, but because we work remotely, obviously we're not able to take advantage of that. But, they have been pretty good about giving us a very small stipend, but it's better than nothing. And then this last point, contribution to a 529 college savings plan or investing in a state prepaid education fund. This is another great way to have the club contribute funds that are beneficial to your family if you have smaller children. So, you just need to agree that the years that they contribute, if you leave after 5 years, you do get to keep that money. So I know I spoke to Sarah Dixon about this because they have a small child and she was negotiating a new package with Wilderness. These are just some ideas that I gave to her. I'm not sure if it came to fruition or not, but she thought it was an excellent idea. So keep those things in mind. Those are all very, very valuable to you. It doesn't just have to be in salary. Before you go in and sit with your employer, you really need to have all of this documented and you need to have a goal in mind. Don't just walk in and say, hey, I think I deserve a promotion. And they say, okay, well, what do you think that needs to be? And you go, well, I don't know. I don't know what that should be. You need to have a goal in mind. So right now, the average pay increase is 3%. A good pay increase is 4.5 to 5%. An excellent pay increase is over 5%. So I always like to start high, start at 10 to 15%. However, you need to keep in mind, what is your tenure at the club currently? What are your current responsibilities and what have you accomplished? If you're an entry-level assistant and you've only been there this first season, that is not going to work. You need to be a little more realistic about what you're asking for. So take all of this into consideration and make sure you have a goal before you walk into your employer's office.
And Kathy, can I
Yep.
add on real quick a little bit, going back to the cash is king, some additional items and not maybe looking at the base salary. While we want to look at all of those other options, right? Health insurance and stipends, health and wellness, all of those things are good other avenues. The other thing too, to don't forget, is you may want to look at incentive-based options that you may not be receiving. If you're not receiving a bonus structure off of merchandise sales and you're heavily, you don't necessarily have a merchandise manager, you're the one handling it, or whoever is, or is it an option if you're selling outings? Is there an option for $1 per head potentially, to come back your way if you're the one running the outings, your staff is, all of that. So there are other ways to attack actual cash compensation versus just base salary that is mutually beneficial to not only yourself, but also to the club, that you want to think about and look through, as well as proposed. If you get shot down on the base salary range, maybe have that in the back of your head coming back. Like Kathy said, what is your plan? That way we ensure we have a good way of trying to, put some money in our pocket, or trying to get some of these other benefits added to our package.
So taking all of this into consideration, put a proposal together and write it down, put all your accomplishments on there, put your goal on there, really understand where you can be flexible and where you think they can be flexible, and just really look prepared when you go into speak to them. This is the most important thing. Timing is everything. Make sure that you're not talking to your employer when your member guest is coming up the next weekend, right? Make sure that it's before budget season and not after the budget has been set, because that's not likely going to work. If you can get them off-site, that's probably the best time, so that you're not interrupted and they're not distracted with other meetings with committees or the board, or, depending on who you report to, what their position is. Invite them out for coffee in the morning, take them out to lunch, go grab a cocktail. If you can, again, get them off property, usually you're more successful. And then make sure you're living by the 70-30 rule. And the 70-30 rule is listen more than you're talking, right? 70% of the time you should be listening, and 30% of the time you can do the talking. So be very succinct in what you're asking for. Don't get defensive if you don't get what you ask for. Try to find out where there's flexibility. But again, try not to do all of the talking. I know that's really hard when you get nervous. I have that same issue. I'm a talker. You all know that. And when I get nervous, I talk even more. So you really have to just kind of breathe and be very succinct in your proposal, and then do a lot of listening, ask a lot of questions, and, again, put yourself in their position and see where there's flexibility. And then post-discussion is so important too, right? First of all, you can't take this personally. You have to separate your personal emotions from business, and you have to understand the club's constraints as well. So I think they need to give you good reasons. I think that you can ask when would be a good time, or when is a time that you can review again your proposal. Keep journaling your accomplishments, maintain a positive attitude no matter what. And, we know how hard that is. Look, we go through that with PGA headquarters, just like you go through it with your clubs. So it's frustrating, but we have to maintain a positive attitude. We keep journaling our accomplishments. It's really good to ask for that career advancement plan, in addition to, what your personal career plan is. Sit down with your employer and say, let's talk about an advancement plan. And what do I need to do to get this increase in the next 6 months to a year? Really, really important. And I think it holds them accountable, and accountability is important on both sides of the fence. Accept constructive criticism. We're not all perfect. There are areas where we can all improve. You have to be open to that. And you have to take action on that too, right? You can accept it, but doing something about it is different than just saying, okay, yeah, I get it. Go make those corrections, whether that's gaining new skills or certifications, or changing your attitude, or, taking on additional responsibility. You have to accept and take action on that criticism. And then this is the one thing that I see in interviewing, and I don't get to see this, but I'm sure it's happening because it's happening with interviewing. You guys have to send thank you notes. And that can be in the form of an email or a written hand note. Obviously is going above and beyond. If you're interviewing, you have to do both because it needs to be instantaneous. But I can't tell you how many times a search committee has said, this is really tough decision between these two, but this person sent a thank you note and this one didn't. So we're going to go with this person. It can be a deal breaker. So you have to write a thank you note. It takes 30 seconds to do it in an email. And again, going above and beyond with a handwritten note goes a long way. So please do that. And I know you will be successful.
And even if it's not the outcome that you wanted, right, from the negotiations,
gotta
still
do it
follow
anyway.
up with a thank you. You know, thank you for your time. Greatly appreciated the conversation. While I understand we couldn't come to an agreement at this time, I look forward to continuing to provide, you know, great
Excellent
results.
service. Yeah.
Yeah, throughout, and you know, having this conversation at a later date or whatever the follow-up plan was laid out. And all of a sudden that can turn an attitude of them wanting just to come in and say no to, hey, you know what, we've got something really special here. So let's try to take care of them and ensure that we're working toward things. Again, I'm going to skip back real quick. The other thing too to think about when we're negotiating, it may be negotiating for additional staff, meaning there might be a way to negotiate for some additional hourly staff or some budget that allows you and your assistant professionals to achieve some work-life integration, to either be able to be out there giving more lessons and providing more compensation to your pockets in that manner. So again, it's not all about the dollars at the end of the day, but it's coming up with creative ways and other additional thinking that we can potentially get more dollars into your pocket or more time off or whatever it is that you're looking to achieve from that negotiation.
And then one final point on that, know when it's time to move on. So if this employer is not ever going to give you a raise and there is not growth opportunity, that next phone call should be to me. And let's talk about, you know, your next step in your career and where we can move you, where we can advance you. That happens every single day. You know, people run their course and it's fine. And employers run their course. So you need to really know when it's time to go. So keep that in mind too.
I'm going to build on that. Sorry, Kathy. I know you said last, and I know we got to get to the rest here on the job offer. But if you would find yourself in a situation where the employer is trying to strong arm, like saying, "Hey, I had an employer I was working with that wanted to change how lesson revenue was split. They wanted to go from a 90-10 split to a 20% to the professional, 80% to the facility." That professional brought me in and I ended up having a very long conversation. But one of the data points that we used on top of all the value that these professionals were bringing to this facility, because we did all of that research. But the other thing too is we brought in a cost of replacement information, and it's 6 to 9 months salary to replace somebody. On top of, typically it's a 20% increase to that salary that was already being paid. So there's a real cost to replacement. And so what we ended up doing at the end of the day is getting that flip from where they wanted 20-80 to where, while it still wasn't the 90-10, it went to 70-30 though. So we were able to kind of still at least kind of get it, you know, we at least say 50% of that income of what the individual was trying to take. So just another way to kind of utilize Kathy and I in these as well, because we can come in and talk to the employers at times if need be.
I actually get to do that on Friday. Okay, let's move on to negotiating a new job offer, because some of you may have those this summer. So just some quick statistics about the labor market. The unemployment rate is still hovering at 3.5%, but hospitality and leisure is still below pandemic levels, so by 2.2%. So we're still struggling to find talent in hospitality and golf. You know, I hear it from you every single day. Finding assistant professionals is tough. I think one thing you need to keep in mind is, do you really need a golf professional to be a counter clerk? And can we find someone else who can answer phones and take tea times and, just smile and welcome people as they come through the door? I think we need to get creative in how we use our staff, and we need to get more aware of the younger generation and what they want, and that's revolving responsibilities. So again, we're still below pandemic levels for labor, which is great for all of you who are looking for new positions. So why negotiate? Why negotiate a new job offer? 80% of employers expect a salary negotiation. I can tell you in sitting in executive searches, there is a salary range that the employer is offering. That first offer is always at the low end. So if you're not willing to negotiate, then you're probably accepting the minimum. And if you're an entry level employee, professional, if you add what you could have negotiated up over your lifetime, you could be leaving $1 to $1.5 million on the table. That's with compound interest, and it is a significant number. I wish somebody would have told me that when I was 25 years old. I might not be in this position right now, but yeah, significant. I mean, it could be $1,500 increase that can add up to that $1 to $1.5 million. So keep that in mind. Employers expect you to negotiate. They have also said that 90% have said they never have rescinded an offer from someone who's wanting to negotiate. Now, I've only known of one in our section, and I think there were some underlying reasons why that happened, and I'm not going to go into that today, but 90% have said they've never rescinded an offer. So keep that in mind. 85% of people who negotiate are successful. So don't accept that first offer. Call Keith or myself or your per consultant in your section if we have people on here from another section, and run it by them. Run it by your mentor. Get a couple of people's input or feedback on it before you accept. When to negotiate. The negotiation starts when you get an offer. Do not negotiate money before you have a bird in your hand. It will inevitably go the wrong way for you. I have this quiet zone on there. If employers want to know what you're currently making, and this comes up in interviews all the time, you have to figure out a way to deflect. So you can say, I'm not currently authorized to reveal my compensation while I'm still employed with my current employer, but I can confirm that the salary range that was proposed either through Executive Search or on pga.org is within the range that I would accept. So you don't want to give up your salary. You just don't want to do it, because that's where they're going to start. And the goal, usually when you're taking a new position or it's a new job offer, is to advance. So do not give up your salary. Do not accept the offer on the spot. Take 24 hours to review and compare it with the research that you've done, and the time that you need. Obviously, you should be talking to your family about it as well. So take 24 hours. Do not accept it on the spot. And again, reach out to your advisors, to your mentors. Reach out to us, and let us help you walk through it. Research. I mean, we can't do enough research in everything that we do in our lives, right? So what is the market value for this position? You should obviously know that going in before you even apply. Again, get comp reports and do some comparative shopping. Take into consideration location, cost of living, and housing. I know I'm starting the search for Pelican's Nest. We're doing the search for Harbor Ridge. I'm in the middle of Lost City right now. That's one of the questions I ask the candidates that are applying. If you're not currently in the area, are you aware of what the housing market looks like? And do you know what the cost of living is in Florida? And can you relocate quickly? And if they can't answer yes to that, I just can't take them in as a candidate, because that's so important that they understand how challenging the housing market is and what the cost of living and those things are in their planning. Assess your value. Again, have those accomplishment statements ready. Consider the whole package, similar to the promotions. Don't just get locked in on what the base salary is. There's always room for negotiation in relocation packages, in signing bonuses, in deferred compensation. All of those things are negotiable. So keep that in mind. Don't just get locked in on the base salary. And then most importantly, and I had a text message this morning from one of our professionals in the section, and he said, should I apply for an opportunity that just became available? And my answer is, I can't answer that for you. You have to answer it for yourself. However, if you move from your current employer to this opportunity, is this a growth opportunity? And then what does this get you to your next stage? Like, what is your end goal? And will this move get you to your end goal? If the answer is no, then I think you're better off staying where you are. If it does set you up for success in the future, then yes, you should absolutely do it. But you need to take everything into consideration, and you need to do that research to ensure that this move is the right one for your career.
And Kathy, I'll add on to that a little bit. So one of the things that I learned a long time ago and was told was the worst thing that they're going to do is tell you yes in a job search, because then you have to make the decision. If they tell you no, like, so if you have interest, if you think this is something that, might be of interest and you might be on the fence a little bit about it, still go after it. In the sense that you can say no. Now, you can't go into 5 different positions and say no. You're going to gain a reputation. But if it's a one-off and you're like, you know what, I want to explore it, but then at the end of the day, it doesn't feel right, compensation is not right, and you can't come to an agreement, you can walk away and say no. Like, because again, I've always felt this, the worst thing they're going to do is tell you yes, because then the ball is in your court, versus if they tell you no, hopefully you're going to learn something along the way, hone your interviewing skills, and hopefully be better for the next time.
Yeah. And I don't know that you and I agree on this, so I'm just going to throw my 2 cents in.
That's fine. That's probably we don't, and that's okay.
If I'm facilitating an executive search, my final candidates, I need to know that they're going to say yes if the terms are what we've talked about throughout the whole process. There's nothing worse than having a final candidate when, we've kind of walked through the whole process. We know what the offer is going to be. We've done a little coaching, and then they say, yeah, I forgot to ask my wife and she doesn't want to move.
What?
That was like, that's a no-no. I mean,
that I don't disagree with. I think my point is actually a little bit more early on in the process, right? Like, if you kind of throw your name in and say, hey, after a first interview, and say, okay, you know what, this isn't quite right, I'm going to walk away. No, not if everything's on the table and been laid out kind of along the way, then yeah, we probably should know prior to that final offer that if we're going to accept or not. So yes, I'll refine.
I think my guys on the call know that I have pretty much everything buttoned up before that offer comes. There's a little flexibility, but yeah, there's usually no surprises. So yeah, I think it depends on the situation. Let's agree with that.
Yes, correct.
Again, don't get stuck on base salary. We've got some ideas up here for you to consider. Happy to share these with you. How to negotiate. So there's a great video on YouTube from a gentleman called Deepak Malhotra, and he is the professor of business administration at Harvard Business School. It's about a 30-minute video. It's excellent. He talks about how to negotiate, and it's a very, it's not confrontational at all. He's just very calm. He's got great advice on how to negotiate that and leave emotion out. And I highly recommend you all take a look at it. He's also authored a book called Negotiating the Impossible. I haven't read it yet, but it's on my list of books to read this year. But I can tell you, I was really, really impressed with his presentation. It's actually a presentation to a graduate class at Harvard who are similar to Marty's kids, right? Graduating and going and negotiating their first job offers. So his advice, which I have some of it here, is outstanding in the way it was teaching them just to have the conversation was so interesting. So convey enthusiasm, at every point. Don't underestimate likability. And I love this phrase because you received an offer for a reason, and likability is huge in our industry. When we sit in with these executive searches and we talk to employers every single day, we hear, I need somebody who's positive, engaging, visible, and that's the likability factor. So don't underestimate the likability factor. They gave you an offer for a reason. So, play up on that. Understand their constraints, be prepared, sell your brand and value. We've talked about all of these. I love this one, negotiate with the decision maker. Some of the bigger clubs have HR departments involved. Try to avoid that, right? Go negotiate with the person that you're going to report to. Sometimes you can't do that, but you don't want to negotiate with the head professional when the director of golf is the decision maker. You don't want to negotiate with the director of golf if the general manager is the negotiator. You want to try your best to negotiate with the person who can make that decision, can pull the trigger. Ask a lot of questions and remember that 70-30 rule. Stay at the table. And what that means is, it may be no today, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a no forever. So what can we do to stay at the table and say, I understand your constraints today. Obviously, in 6 months, we might not have the same constraints. Can we revisit? Can we put this advancement plan together? Always find a way to create a win-win situation, and don't walk away. Don't walk away angry is basically the end of that. Don't negotiate just to negotiate. If you're going to negotiate, put everything together that you're concerned about. Don't negotiate, your teaching commission and then say, okay, I got that. Now let's negotiate this. You have to put it all on the table at once. No employer wants you to nickel and dime them on every little opportunity. Don't give ultimatums. You will lose. That never works. And be flexible. So in the end, you just want to create a win-win situation. Whether you walk away or not, it affects your brand. Keep that in mind. You want an employer to speak positively about you if you don't accept the offer, because you may be applying at another place down the street. And as we all know, these general managers, directors of golf, head professionals, they all know each other. They all talk. So you want to make sure that, you take the high road and keep your brand to the best as you possibly can. One thing on employment contracts, this is an at-will state, right? So anybody can terminate at any time. However, if you have an employment contract in writing, it is enforceable. And I looked into this and went through some of the legal, some various legal sites. The terms must be sufficiently definitive to be enforced. The agreement is supported by consideration. So that means I give you this, you give me that. There must be clear intent to be bound by the terms by both parties. That means you both sign off on it. I think the most important thing if you're going to ask for an employment contract is that you implement a severance package. And a normal severance package is usually a week to a week and a half for every year that you've served. I see some of our professionals getting totally screwed in this area. We have one that has served 18 years, I think it is, 12 to maybe 12 years, and they offered him 4 weeks. That is not acceptable, and you should not sign off on that. And I'm happy to get involved in that and try to help be the mediator, but a year to a year and a half is very acceptable. And usually you'll win that argument. I can tell you that I won it at Callaway when Chip Brewer came in and reorganized the company, and I was part of the reorganization of managers who lost their job. I was there 9 years, 12 years altogether, 2 different times. And they said, yeah, we're going to give you 4 weeks. And I said, yeah, no, you're not. You're going to give me more than 4 weeks. And so I got an attorney and I actually got a lot more than 4 weeks. So you're usually going to win that argument, but having that in an employment contract or your offer letter, very, very important and very enforceable. And then finally, Keith and I are not legal experts. We don't have anyone at PGA headquarters anymore that helps in this area. So you need to contact your own attorney or an employment attorney and have things reviewed if you're uncomfortable with some of the language in an employment contract. And we're happy to try to help you find somebody like that. But very important they have somebody look that over that is a legal expert.
And you want to have somebody local because every state law is a little bit different. So having someone who is an expert within the local climate is very key in this point here. Because again, what's done in Florida is different in New York. It's different in California, across the board. So have somebody that's within and understands that local state's government.
So we would love any questions that you have. We would love to hear best practices. If any of you have best practices that we can, add to the presentation going forward. But any questions? I'm going to stop presenting here. Happy to share this with you too if you want to shoot me an email. Bueller?
Oh, wait a second. I will ask something just because I know it came up earlier in the presentation, but wasn't circled back on. So say people are negotiating something and it's turned down at first, it's given a no, but they say, let's circle back on this, or they say, hey, in 6 months or a year, after you've performed said duties, we can return and have this conversation and potentially put you at this higher pay.
Right.
What's your suggestion? Would you want to put that in writing as an employee, or can you take action on just that verbal agreement like you were kind of outlining at the end there?
I think it's a lot easier to hold them accountable if it's in writing, right? If you sit down together and say, hey, let's create this plan, this growth plan, and what I need to do to potentially get to this increase. So if it's in writing and you both agree on it, it's easier to hold them accountable.
Agreed.
Right.
100%.
Yep. Because they have buy-in and you have buy-in, right? It's creating that win-win situation. So it's really hard in 6 months for them to go, I don't remember saying that, right?
Right.
Which we know happens all the time.
Yeah,
definitely. I don't remember that. So get it in writing. I think that's important. And it doesn't have to be like a legal contract or anything, but let's sit down, put a career plan together, exceed or perform or get better at, or whatever that may be.
Looks like we have one from Kevin here. How can you get out of a contract if a life-changing offer comes your way?
If it's a contract, Kevin, you need to have somebody, a legal expert, look at it. You really do. Again, I think they're hard to, they are enforceable. I think they're hard to enforce unless there's something in there that you've committed to, like, did you commit to being here for 5 years? You may be giving something up. Like, I know if you have deferred compensation in place and you break this agreement, there's a potential for you to lose that deferred compensation. So you have to be willing to, walk away from that. I can tell you that non-compete agreements are going away. The Federal Trade Commission does not believe that those are in the best interest of employers or employees. And there's some legislature out there right now that would make those go away, or they would have to be, defined really, really, really narrowly in order to be enforceable. So, again, talk to a legal expert about that. I don't want to give you any false advice or false hope, but, again, it depends on the state that you're in too. Like Keith said, I think you need to have an attorney look at it, Kevin, if you have a contract.
Yeah, and a lot of times in the contract, it states it should hopefully state that either party has the ability to terminate the contract at any time for particular reasons. And quite honestly, that's in there, or hopefully would be in there, not only for you as an employee, but for the employer especially in those states that are not at will. Those are going to be in there to allow that to be broken.
That's a good
in
point,
some form or
Keith.
fashion.
If it's not in there, you should probably make sure that it's in there. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, that would be another way to negotiate, next time the contract comes around, is negotiate at least that wording in there if it's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else, Jack?
Nothing else right now. I'll wait a couple minutes. If you don't mind, Kathy, just send me your slides because I'll send them out to everybody.
Sure.
Because I think there were a couple comments of people who'd like those slides.
Okay. Marty, any feedback?
Yeah.
The queen of feedback.
No, fantastic presentation today. Great framework for everyone. Mike, I have a question. Do you have any good examples or insights on golf professionals who have been successful in negotiating increased compensation for their entire staff?
All the
Or any insights on how to be successful in doing that?
For me, yes, I have examples of that, and a lot of it goes back to market analysis. Markets changed so much over the past 2-3 years with the COVID boom that, if you haven't gone to the negotiating table, now's the time to do it, because markets are going up, but also it comes back to the value that's being driven by the operation as a whole, Marty. What are the assistants doing? What are, in addition to what's happening from the top, because more than likely they're doing some items too that are driving bottom line revenue. So as a collaborative effort, you can kind of go in and say, hey, look, here's the value that we're driving as a team. And, based on market analysis, I'm here, I'm asking for this for my position. Here's where we need to get our assistants to ensure that we're retaining the talent that we have, because that's the other key component and key word right now is retention, right? Everybody wants to retain because it's so hard to fill. So, hey, if we need to retain, here's where we need to get them to. Here's where the market says, here's the value that they're bringing. Again, coming in with research and information and having the success stories, or having I always say that we speak a foreign language when we speak golf. So if you just come in there and say, hey, look, we've increased junior programming, we've increased player development, we've increased tournament participation, they're going to go great, but they're not necessarily going to understand what that means. So we need to translate it. And to me, that language is dollars and cents. Everybody understands dollars and cents. So if we can translate what we've been doing into dollars and cents, all of a sudden now we have a very strong argument for the whole team to be lifted up.
And you know what, Marty, I think that's a great, as we're doing all of our chapter meetings right now, and we're going into the annual meeting, it's probably a great survey, right, of our professionals to say, hey, how many of you have been successful? I would love to see that. People will call and we'll help with strategies and talking about things like this, but we don't necessarily know what the end result is. Right. If they don't reach back out and share it, or I don't reach back out and ask, and that's just hard to do right now. So maybe that's something we can talk to the section about, and maybe do a survey of our professionals to say, hey, how successful were you in increasing staff compensation since COVID, probably, right? Since
right.
COVID? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
so maybe we can talk to the two chiefs at the section office and see if we can get that done.
Yeah, I'm happy to pass that along.
I was going to say, we'll use Jackie as the messenger.
Yeah, that'll go above me.
I was going to say, Marty, I know it wasn't here in Florida, but in Ohio, we successfully negotiated $90,000 into one golf operation to be split through the assistants and the head professional.
That's fantastic. Because I think sometimes we focus as the leader, on ourselves, right?
Yeah.
But are we hurting ourselves? We're negotiating ourselves a great raise, but we've left our staff behind.
That's a really good point.
And ultimately, we're going to end up hurting ourselves if we do that.
Yeah, because nobody's going to want to come and work for you, right?
Correct.
They're not going to get paid. So we see that. We do see that in our section, right?
Yeah.
Got to take care of the staff too.
I can speak from personal experience. I never went in and asked solely for a raise for myself. There was always some ask for my staff as well. Now there were times where I asked for additional staff because my staff, I would ask them, like, what do you want? Do you want more time away or do you want more money? You know, like that was a question I posed to my staff. And there was a few years where they said, hey, we're getting killed. Like, can we get another person, you know, in some other management role or just even in hourly roles that can take some pressure off of us. So instead of going in and asking for just a base salary increase, I asked for more budgetary dollars for my labor expense to be able to add staffing to take pressure off of those individuals at that time. And that's what they wanted. So again, I think it's also making sure to talk with your staff and understand what's going to motivate them. What are they looking for? Is it more money, or is it, hey, I'm getting killed. I need some time away from here.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Thanks for joining today. It's great to see everyone. I hope you're getting a little bit of downtime now that the season is over, and we see a lot of car carriers in Naples and Fort Myers and the surrounding area. So, and on the East Coast, I saw a couple yesterday when I was over there.
You
Taking
send those-
people out.
Yeah, kicking
You-
people out.
I
Can you
judge it
send
by
the-
traffic.
Can you send them north?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can. Just don't give them back.
No, I mean like north to North Florida. Like we don't lose
Oh.
people like you all do.
They just stay.
We're
They
lucky.
just stay.
Always there. They're starting to stay here too, though. That's the problem.
Okay, Jackie's going to have a copy of the slides if anybody wants them, or you can reach out to me. And I thank you for your time. Please
Yeah,
let me know if you need anything. Happy to always have a conversation with you. You know that.
yeah. I will send. I'm sure everyone has it, but I'll send contact information for both Kathy and Keith, as well as the slides. And like Kathy said, please take advantage of her as a resource. Obviously, it can make tremendous impact on your career. So thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Keith. We appreciate it, and hopefully
Jackie.
everyone enjoyed the presentation.
Have a good
Thanks,
day.
everybody.
Rest of the week.
Thank you. Bye.